Hey there, this is Wednesday, April 21, 2021. Um, I'm going to read this to you. This is shocking. I was just reading a post from Linwood on Telegram. You know, he's running to head the Republican Party in South Carolina. They have a bill proposal that if the governor of North Carolina signs it, it says that people drawn to the Republican Party in the past 4 years by President Trump would not be eligible to be candidates for office until at least 2024 or maybe later. Linwood needs to be able to be voted in to lead the Republican Party and help to stop some of this nonsense. You know, we know they are racing towards communism for America. And it's not just the Democrats that are doing it. The Republicans are involved too. And there is so much corruption down to very low levels. And, you know, I appreciate that these guys that were at the Health and Freedom Conference last weekend are saying get involved in local politics. That's important. But we have got to correct the 2020 election. That has to be corrected. And the people at the top levels need to be kicked out who got there through cheating. We need people running at every level. My state senator is running for lieutenant governor. So there's somebody new running here, and I don't know who that is. Anyhow, as you know, Obama got rid of so many of the good guys at the top. But remember, Larry told us that by the time you get to the level of general, that is a political appointment. It's not that you are promoted and promoted and promoted. That may be part of it. But if you're getting your promotion, it's because you have joined the politics necessary to get there. I want to thank God for Anderson Cooper. Sounds weird. But I remember seeing, now I didn't watch him, but I saw this. This was shown. Somebody captured it and started putting it out, where on Anderson Cooper's show, they were showing the election results in Antrim County, Michigan. And that's one of the key players in the fraud. And you saw that Biden's name was first. They were listed alphabetically. Biden's name was at the top. So many votes for Biden, so many votes for Trump. And they said, okay, we've got an update coming. So the numbers for Trump, 6,000 votes. Trump's number dropped by 6,000 and Biden's number increased by 6,000. They had flipped them. There was no update. That was just a total change of who they're giving the votes to. So Antrim County's still embroiled in this election fraud stuff. There is a brilliant man who has been studying the algorithms showing that votes were switched in at least 4 states. In Antrim County, 125% of the population is registered to vote there. Now, 125%, where does that extra 25% come from? That, would indicate, is my guess, that there's somebody who's planning to vote throw in an additional 25% of the population number of ballots. So there's something goofy there. What ended up happening was the outcome of the election followed the algorithm that had been pre-programmed into the computers. There is no way that every single county in Michigan has exactly the same spike where the election results are coming in, and all of a sudden there's this huge jump and then a drop off. And it's statistically impossible for that to happen in every single state, every single county. It happened in 88 counties in Ohio. It happened in 64 counties in Colorado. It happened in Florida. There was another state that they've discovered this. So, a lot of those of us who think, oh, our state did a good job, just haven't been caught yet, don't have the proof yet. So they created a key to make all of this happen. So, I just wonder if Anderson Cooper had that, what they showed, if that helped to tip people off to start looking. I heard today that South Dakota and Arizona have approved that there will be no vaccine passports for their states. I think that is added now to Florida, I think Texas and Tennessee as well. Getting rid of the mask mandate as well as getting rid of the vaccine passport is incredible. So, one of the big issues with the vaccine passport is the violation of HIPAA laws, because your medical history is supposed to be private. That's why if you have under ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, if you have an exemption from wearing a mask, they can't harass you about that. I appreciate that in Arkansas, I went to eat at a restaurant. They insisted that I have a mask on, so I just kind of, and I've gone someplace where I was told I couldn't come in without a mask, so I just did this. And as soon as the person walked away, I put my shirt back down. This whole thing is just, well, it's dumb. But the advantage, one of the things that's happening with the elimination of the mask mandates is kids can go back to school and be normal. I understand that Nancy Pelosi was thanking George Foreman for his sacrifice, for sacrificing himself for justice. That was the quote. Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing yourself for justice. She tweeted that George Floyd did not die in vain. They did not address one bit in that trial that he had meth and fentanyl in his system and that he had heart trouble. They didn't even address that at all. And I'll have to tell you, I worked in a psychiatric hospital. I was on the most difficult ward. And we had a guy come in. He was high on meth. And I'll tell you, he was one scary guy. And he had to be put in a locked wing. But the problem was the unit was full. And so this locked wing, there were people who had to be in there and, try to bar the door to keep the guy out of his room. And there were orderlies that had to be in there. And we had a really big, heavy guy, strong guy, who was an orderly on the ward. And he had to go over to the emergency room because of what was done. I think they kicked him in the face or something, and they thought he had a concussion or something, really knocked his lights out. My question is, I don't know if you guys have seen the pictures. I agree with you, Kelly. I don't know if you've seen the pictures of Chauvin with his, kneeling on George Floyd at the time, and then the guy who is sitting there for the trial. If you see the profile, the shape of the nose is completely different. The shape of the ear is the inner ear here, the eustachian tube area is completely different. It just, this Chauvin is apparently some kind of an actor as well. I have no idea. But there you've got Maxine Waters, you've got President Biden, well, not president, You've got Biden saying that there has not been enough justice. Are you kidding me? It just seems like they're race baiting, and they're talking about color again. Thank you, Obama, for bringing the race thing up again when we finally were getting to the point where we were just loving on one another and accepting one another. I do appreciate this city, because the interactions I've had, the Black people here have been more friendly to me than the whites have been. And I have to tell you, I appreciate that, because having grown up in an all Black community, I feel comfortable, and I'm not sensing the hostility here that I have other places. They're decriminalizing criminals, but not and then criminalizing the police. Biden said that we are confronting head on the systemic racism. Well, Biden, you were part of that under Obama's term. And speaking of racism, is there anybody more racist than Biden has shown himself to be? I agree, Donna, that the guy in court looks a lot younger than the Chauvin. And then we've got Tlaib saying we need to defund the police. And what in the world are we doing? It is against our Constitution to allow people who do not support our Constitution and do not support the Christian faith to be in politics. And the whole thing with Islam, I remember a very conservative Muslim ran for office in Maryland, in my county, in my precinct. And I didn't know this exactly, but I had studied Islam in college. That was my choice. I was in what class was it? It was a Bible class of some sort. I don't remember which class it was. And we had to study a world religion and do a, paper on it. And Islam was the religion that I studied. So I knew I didn't know this I did not know their plan, how they take over a country. I did not know that was not well known back in, it was 1970, somewhere in there. Or at least I didn't come across it in my research. But to realize now that what they want to do is they want to get office. They want to become, part of the political system. And as soon as they have enough people, they will take it over. 7 Sigma. What is that, Kelly? What is 7 Sigma? It says check out the website for 7-Sigma. Anyhow, you've got Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, and they have no business. It is against the Constitution for them to be in office, and they have not been taken out. And there was an effort to censure Maxine Waters for fomenting terrorism, and it failed because, the congressman voted on party lines. That's why who you vote for is so important. And there she is fomenting terror, but she's got security guards around her. I have seen the picture of a mannequin that looks just like George. I've seen that. I've seen it several times, actually. In Windham, New Hampshire, just a town in New Hampshire, they say that there was fraud in their election just for local politics issues. And so they are doing an audit of their ballots, which is, we need to have more and more states doing that. Arizona, Maricopa County audit starts, I think, tomorrow. They need still volunteers. If you live in Arizona, or somebody who lives in Arizona, the first post under Nobles, right at the top of the live chat, I gave you how to sign up. It's https:// let me look up, Arizona audit ArizonaAudit.com/sign-up and then slash again. So ArizonaAudit.com/sign-up. Sign up if you are available there to help with that. And again, I'm going to just mention, be praying for Phoenix, because there's rumor that the rioters are going to go make havoc there. I titled this Riots in the City. I didn't watch beyond, something came up last night, and so I wasn't able to keep, I got phone calls, I think. Wasn't able to keep watching after the verdict was read and seeing people, dancing in the street about it. I didn't watch whether I didn't see or hear. I didn't hear anything this morning any further. Like, is that over and now they dropped the news and that nobody's talking about it anymore? So I don't know what happened, but remember, Larry told us that if they can get 5 cities to riot at the same time, martial law comes in automatically through the FEMA provisional government. We certainly don't want that to happen under a Democrat-controlled government. So we need to be praying that they will not start this in Phoenix. Now, it has to be 5 at the same time, and we see them marching, city to city. But our governor here in Arkansas even said yesterday that they were preparing for trouble in Little Rock very soon. Was there anything else? I hate to do this, but we need to be aware. There is a video called Eyes of the Devil on YouTube. I'm going to forewarn you, it is heinous, it is horrible. It is a revelation of the sex trafficking and trafficking for murder and massacring children, little ones, just abusing them until they have destroyed their bodies. And wanting, requesting, putting in a bid or a, just like we've heard that they're doing on Wayfair. They request a child that they can murder because that's part of where they get their jollies. And there are multiple locations. One of the, I understand, I'm telling you something I heard, and I can't verify this, so I'm just saying this is something I heard, but I understand the Bidens had a property next to underground tunnels that were part of this scheme. Germany is one of the locations people could go to do this. It just, what is happening is so horrendous. There is a man in Poland. Apparently Poland has a lot of kids that disappear. Anyhow, this man in Poland interviewed a trafficker, and the trafficker revealed a lot of what is going on. And as hard as it is to watch, we need to know what's going on so that we can stand up and say something. We need to be participating in stopping all this, just like, we have really failed the Lord in our failure to be involved in protesting what Planned Parenthood's doing. Thank God for David Deladine, or however you pronounce his last name, and what he did to reveal the trafficking happening out of Planned Parenthood. But our own FDA is buying body parts from Planned Parenthood of children who are full term, claiming they need it for research. Give me a break. Larry told us he didn't say a lot about trafficking, because he knew it was a death warrant to discuss it. And here we've got Jim Caviezel, Mike Lindell, Lynn Woods, all these people that were there last weekend in Tulsa. They're bringing it to the forefront. Jim Caviezel, from who played the Christus in Passion of the Christ, is coming out with a brand new movie describing what Tim Ballard does. The Our Underground Railroad, OUR, Our Underground, I think it's Our Underground Railroad. And so he is playing Tim Ballard to discuss things that have happened. There was a girl in the they found in the Middle East who they had murdered her parents. They had taken her. She had been used and abused, and she was no longer serviceable as a sex partner. And so the intent was to retire her, and the way they retire is to chop up her body parts and organ transplants. And they got wind of this child, this girl, and she was posted on Facebook, I think this morning, that they were able to find her and rescue her. Now, here's part of the problem. These kids that are being rescued, the rescuers are now getting in trouble and being accused of kidnapping rather than rescue. You need to know that this weekend, I think it's Friday, Saturday, in Ohio, Louisville, Ohio, is a weekend seminar with Russ Dizdar and Tom Dunn. They are very involved in satanic ritual abuse rescues, and in Ohio and Pennsylvania especially. They are doing a seminar to inform people about the sex trafficking, again, about the satanic ritual abuse that's going on. So if you would like to get that training, it's $30 by live stream, and you can find that out at CoachDaveLive.com. If you're on Facebook, Mike Spalding, Spaulding, he has the link as well, and on Facebook. God have mercy. How in the world we can expect to be okay when we have been so blind and deceived about what's really going on. And people who are considered conspiracy theorists, we really need to think hard and long about what they're telling, because there's more truth-telling going on than we realize. So that's a little tough transition to go from there to Samuel's prayer. But I just really feel a need for the cleansing of the word, God help us. So I'm going to read the passage in 1 Samuel 3 again. I think I go up to verse 14, I think. Samuel was afraid to tell the vision. Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli as a child. The word of the Lord was precious in those days, but there was no open vision. It came to pass at that time, when Eli was lying down in his place, his eyes had begun to wax dim, so he couldn't see. And before the lamp of God went out in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was, and Samuel was lying down to sleep, that the Lord called Samuel, and he answered, Here am I. And he ran to Eli and said, Here am I, for you called me. And Eli said, I didn't call you, lie down again. And Samuel went and lay down again. The Lord called yet again, Samuel. Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, Here am I, for you did call me. And Eli answered, I called not, my son, lie down again. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, neither was the word of the Lord yet revealed unto him. That came later. There are actually I wrote down there was a in 1 Samuel 7, 8, 12, and 15, it are some more of his prayers, talking about what a man of prayer he was. So the Lord called Samuel a third time, and he arose and went to Eli again and said, "Here am I, for you did call me." And Eli perceived that the Lord had called the child. So Eli said to Samuel, "Go lie down. It shall be if he calls you again, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant hears.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. And the Lord came and stood and called as at other times, "Samuel, Samuel." Then Samuel answered, "Speak, for your servant hears." And the Lord said, "Behold, I will do a thing in Israel at which both the ears of everyone who hear it shall tingle. In that day I will perform against Eli all things I've spoken concerning his house, when I begin, and I will make an end. For I have told him I will judge his house forever for the iniquity that he knows about, because his sons made themselves vile, and he did not restrain them. Therefore I have sworn to the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be purged with sacrifice nor offering forever." And Samuel was, I'm going to keep going on a little bit. Samuel feared to show Eli the vision, but Eli called him and said, "Samuel, my son." And Samuel answered, "Here am I." And Eli asked, "What's the thing the Lord said to you? I pray thee, hide it not from me. God do so to thee and more, if you hide any word from me of the things he said." And Samuel told him everything and hid nothing from him. And Eli said, "It is the Lord. Let him do as he seems good." And this is great. It says, Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and let none of his words fall to the ground. And it's interesting that he grew in favor with God and man as well. I think we mentioned that scripture verse yesterday. Just like it was in a description of Jesus. So that's pretty incredible. So here are some of the questions then from the Bible study here. It says in verses 4 to 10, why do you think Samuel has difficulty recognizing it is God who's speaking to him? Now, I wish we could have some interaction on this, but what I saw was that he'd never heard God before. And he was used to serving Eli, who can't see well. So if he's hearing his name being called, he's expecting it's Eli wanting some help to get up in the middle of the night. Eli's an old man. I know from my dad that Dad was getting up several times during the night because he needed to relieve himself during the night, and it got harder and harder for him to do that as the closer he came to the end of his life. So here's Eli, an old man. He's probably and can't see well, so he needs some help from Samuel. So it's no wonder Samuel, God had never spoken to him before, so he didn't know about that. And that's not something Eli had told him. So the question is, next question, what do you think are the difficulties for people today in hearing God speak? I mean, I know for me, I get too busy. I can't be quiet. When I'm busy, I'm not quiet enough to listen and hear. We can get very distracted. We can get distracted with TV or radio or YouTube or, wanting to be aware. I know some of us really want to know what's going on. We want to keep up with what's happening. That's cool, Morgan. Thanks for sharing that. We can be restless or anxious. Larry was very frustrated about what it meant to seek God's face. And he mentions in the book, wanting to hear God's voice, wanting some burning bush experience like Moses had. And he never did hear God speak, but he was one of these hyperactive guys that his brain was always, it was hard for him to sleep at night because his brain was spinning with so many ideas. And so we tend to fill the air with noise. And if God is speaking in a still, small voice, then we really do need to be quiet. And I will say last night, I was walking across the living room to go close the blinds after dark. And I said, I think I heard the Lord tell me where I'm to go. I'm not going to say anything yet. It's like, I need confirmation of this because this is a pretty big thing. So we'll see. So what do you learn about the relationship between Samuel and Eli in this exchange? I think it's incredible. Here's this little child. I say little, he was probably 7 when he was taken there. We don't know how soon after, this has happened. But what an obedient servant's heart he has. We discussed this yesterday of the, wondering at the parenting he must have received to be this incredible child. God gave him a heart for God that God knew he would have. And that's just such a blessing. I also wondered if maybe Eli was trying to parent differently with him in his old age, like a grandparent who doesn't want to make the same mistakes they made with their own kids. But, we're speculating. We're speculating. It doesn't say for sure. What we know is Samuel was attentive to Eli, and if Eli was going to cry out for him, he was jumping up to go help. And he was very, very attentive to Eli's needs, and that is obvious from the passage. It says, next question, despite Eli's failing as a father, in what way is he a good mentor to Samuel? Well, it took 3 different tries before Eli realized that God was speaking, but he did finally recognize that, here's Samuel willing to serve when Eli has not called him. Maybe, just maybe, God is calling him, and he tells him how to answer. Next question, what do you think is significant about the words Eli instructs Samuel to say to God in verse 9? We can't hear God unless we're listening. I know God reveals his heart, reveals his word in the Bible. So when we're reading his word, when we're reading his commands, we are aware of what he says and what he wants us to do. But sometimes he will give us specific interaction and help with what we're seeking if we're quiet. So, Samuel is told to acknowledge that God is calling and he is going to listen. And he invites God into his life by saying, speak, for your servant hears. Do you think Samuel is surprised at the word God speaks to him in verses 11 to 14? Well, I said in the way, no, because surely he knew the wickedness of the sons, so it must not have surprised him to hear God say, this is not good. On the other hand, I'm sure he was shocked at being the one who was going to have to tell Eli God's message. Can you imagine being a little child in that day and age of respect for the elders to have to tell? I mean, Joseph had to do that with Pharaoh. Daniel had to do that with Nebuchadnezzar, but they were adults. This is a child having to tell an elderly man that God is going to punish his family forever and his family's going to be wiped out. That had to have been hard. It says, have you ever been surprised by something you sense God telling you to do? Or what did he say and why were you surprised? When God called me in the fall of 2016 to help Larry, I was shocked. I didn't realize how he had turned from who he had been and was seeking the Lord. I didn't know about his repentance. I didn't know. I was very much like arrogant Peter when the men came from Joppa. Before the men came from Joppa, and he saw this vision, he was in a trance, and he saw this vision, and God said, rise, kill, and eat, with all these unclean animals being let down in the sheet. And Peter said, no, I've never done this before. My reaction to the Lord was, are you kidding me? I've never been involved in any of the kinds of things that I understand he and the Clintons had done. Are you kidding me? You want me to help him? And yet, folks, I got to tell you, what I learned about God, in those 4 years of walking beside Larry through all he was going through, calling so many of you to help support Larry when he was desperate for medicine, couldn't get it. He needed to go to the pharmacy. His wife needed to go for him, and they didn't have the money to make the payment, and so on. Surgeries he needed, and we had to come up with money to pay for it. That extended his life. I never could have imagined what God did in my heart because of that experience. And I was, where was it this morning? I was doing something where it was somebody on Facebook that had posted something, and I was answering in the comments. Somebody was sharing an experience they had, and I said, having grown up in Jamaica, as hard as that was. Oh, I know what the question was. What would you tell your teenage self? What would you now, with your perspective and looking back, what would you tell your teenage self if you could speak to your teenage self? And I said I wanted my teenage self to know that I had a good brain and was able to analyze things, because I was told so often that I had no common sense. So I wanted myself to know that that was not true. But the other piece was I wish I had known more readily, earlier in life, Romans 8:28, that God will work things together for good. And there would come a time 30 years later when I would look back and say, God gave me a gift with the difficulties I had experienced. And yeah, that's what I would have said. Are there places in your life where you're more receptive to God's truth or more likely to hear God's voice speaking to you? In Maryland, I had a chair that I would sit in for hours reading the word, praying. And that's where I mostly heard God's voice. On the other hand, it seemed like there was a portal in front of my kitchen sink. I mentioned that yesterday, where it seemed that God talked to me. Because I very quickly, after moving in here, got in the mailbox a witchcraft occult catalog. I've really fought for purity in this house and having to cleanse and rebuke demons a lot. And so it's been really hard for me to find a space. It's been hard for me to hear God's voice at all, even if I'm quiet. It's been hard to hear. So I was shocked when I was at a place last night. It's like I'm doing a good job pushing myself as much as I can to pack as fast as I can, knowing that when the time comes, God's going to tell me where to go. So when I heard go to and a city, I was a little shocked. It was like, Lord, okay, that was one of the places I was considering, but I need confirmation. So I'm waiting for confirmation on that. And the other thing I wrote down in being receptive to God's truth is when you're quiet, prayerful, mindful, spending time in God's word, and seeking him actively. So there's also, at the end of every chapter here in this Bible study, prayers of the Old Testament, there are a couple of passages. So far, there have been passages in the Psalms. We will read those tomorrow. And after that, we're going to go to let's see, tomorrow's Thursday. So we'll start the Prayer of Solomon on Friday. So that's it for today. God bless you. If you know anybody in Arizona, especially the Phoenix area, and they could volunteer with the audit, check out the maybe I should put it up here as a banner. Well, just check out the first comment in the live chat, and the website to go to sign up to volunteer for tomorrow is there. And be praying for a hedge of protection around the people who are speaking about the starts with an A, ends with chrome, that people drink and are addicted to, and are talking about the trafficking. Pray a hedge of protection around them. Pray for Lynn Wood to win in South Carolina so that they can stir things up, shake things up in the Republican Party. So, all right, that's it for now. We'll talk tomorrow. God bless you this evening. Bye-bye.